Did you know that Washington state policies affect your safety, your taxes, and your family, whether you pay attention or not? Here, I make sure you do. I'm your host, Jay, and this is the Evergreen Report, where I'm exposing the impact of local government so you can take action. And straight into our top story of the day. Our top story over the last week, all the buzz, all the craze lately is House Bill 1256. And the Republicans fought an amazingly valiant fight in the House. Jim Walsh, fantastic. Other senators, absolutely fantastic. Y'all outdid yourselves, and it was an amazing sight to see. But it passed after a 6 hour debate, and this bill again stripped parents of their right. Why have parental access? Said the Democrat. Tired of hearing about that? Said the Democrat. We don't need transparency, said the Democrat. We need to take we need to co-parent with the parents. They don't know what they're doing, said the Democrat. It was a heated 6 hour debate. Thousands upon thousands, over 10,000, 15,000, 17,000 people were watching this all over. It was amazing. This kind of transparency is amazing. This was the 5 p.m. bill, as I say. They had Representative Walsh, heard Representative Walsh talk about. He was talking about this as the 5 p.m. bill. So they knew this one was going to go to debate and continue moving on. And this bill essentially removes parental notification requirements for student medical services, meaning schools don't have to inform parents if their child received gender related medical services or counseling. It also gives the Office of Superintendent greater authority over school districts, allowing it to penalize that don't comply with state policies. Reporters say that it protects students' privacy and ensures all children have access to medical care without interference. However, I'm sorry if you're a minor, you're under your parents' roof. You don't get that. I know that's harsh, and not everyone loves that, but it's, they're minors, they're children. They only get so many rights. They don't get full access to all their medical care and things like that. And for damn sure, school doesn't get to allow this to happen. So weakens parental right notification. We fought so hard for the parental bill of rights. And even with this, one of the best amendments I loved from the debate was an amendment to create a student bill of responsibilities. Very simple list of responsibilities for a student: to be respectful, to listen, to don't destroy property, all these things. They said, no, no, can't give the students more responsibility. That's not acceptable. No, that's too common sense. All the amendments that the Republicans were putting in were all common sense ones. They were all common sense, defeated by technicalities and a majority in the House. So this, parental rights are undermined. We'll see kind of where this goes and what happens next as it goes through the Senate next. If the Senate wants to use their bill or this was the one that passed the House, they're making the amendment to it so it looks more like theirs. We'll see. We will see. But yeah, it's not great. Pushes controversial gender policies, creates gender expansive care, mandates gender inclusive training for all school staff, weakens parental rights over gender identity issues so they can withhold information from parents about their gender identity changes, prioritizing student privacy over parental involvement. It shields teachers from consequences if they push controversial views, and it protects educators who support, quote unquote, support students who actively encourage social or medical transitions without parental knowledge. So this removes parental oversight. It pushes gender ideology, gives unelected bureaucrats and also the power to penalize school districts, forces schools to adopt policies that could violate community values, and reduces local control over education. This bill is a direct attack on parental rights, transparency, and local control over schools. And I'm sorry, us parents, we're not done fighting this fight here. Let's Go Washington has a counter initiative ready for if this does pass the House and go into the governor. Where they're ready to fight, and if they fight, that is going to be well had. Well had. But that's our top story today. Let's jump into the Evergreen Ledger roundup. So we're going to go through 5 bills super quick because there's about 15 different bills, 28 pages of research here that I have on all these bills to break them down for you. So I'm going to try to get through all of them super quick and, just make the absolute best of it. So first one we got is House Bill 1356. This is the education property tax hike, which I believe I've talked about in the past. But it's increasing property taxes concerning K through 12 funding. Let me give you the breakdown of it real quick. It makes substantial changes in K through 12 funding, increasing property taxes, expanding government control, and worsening funding inequities across school districts. The major problems with this bill are significant property tax increases, even though it raises the cap on school district levies from $31,049 per student to $5,035 per student. more taxes, but no clear statewide funding solution. So it's just more taxes, but no funding solution for where the money is going to go. Removes enrollment limits on SPED funding without sustainable revenue. Expands bureaucracy with a new K through 12 funding equity work group. So why hire more people to manage this when you could just reallocate the responsibilities, state level department of education to match the need here. And the charter schools get limited funding while public schools get a windfall. So it's going to leave some of those charter schools behind. Charters will only receive local effort assistance funding up to the district's previous per student levy, but only if private donations do not push them past the cap. So it creates new hurdles for charter schools that public schools not face, reducing educational choice. So why the average person should oppose this bill? Massive property tax increases over the next several years does not fix funding inequities, just shifts more burden to taxpayers, creates long-term budget instability, and then hurts charter schools and increases bureaucracy. Those alone should be enough reasons for you to oppose this bill. Next, House Bill 2019. So House Bill 2019 is a bill that proposes a significant increase in Washington state estate tax, targeting high-value estates with drastic tax hikes and creating uncertainty for families, businesses, and farms. It drastically increases the estate tax on families and businesses, raises the exclusions amount to $3 million, up from $2.193 million. Tax rates jump from 10 to 20, 16 to 36, meaning that estates will be taxed at nearly double the sum bracket for the 2019 HBA than 252019. So their current tax rate, 1.2 million is 10 will be 16, 3.3 million to 4 million will go from 16 to 26 with this new bill. 6 million to 7 million will go from 19 to 35, and over 9 million will go from 20 to 38. It's fairly unfair. It doesn't match, anything that the people really want. These situations are already so hard. This bill, again, not a big fan of, but why you should oppose it is massive tax increases on estates, businesses, and family farms. Forces family to sell assets to cover taxes. Retroactive taxation creates legal uncertainty, drives wealth and businesses out of Washington, and expands government spending instead of fixing economic issues. Again, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. I think the next episode we're going to do is a Taxapalooza episode, just to really break down the tax and what's going on there. House Bill 1334, automatic property tax hike. So it eliminates the 1% property tax growth limit. Local governments can only increase property taxes revenue by 1% per year unless voters approve a higher tax rate. House Bill 1334, property tax growth is linked to inflation and population growth with an automatic cap of 3% per year. Result, property taxes will rise every year without voter approval. Basically just, again, cutting you out of this one and going to make it harder to buy a home and just more and more ridiculous. So this eliminates voter control over property tax increases, results in automatic compounding tax hikes every year, makes home ownership and renting more expensive, removes safeguards that prevent government overspending, hurts middle-class families and seniors on fixed income. 1334 is a sneaking tax increase that will drive up property taxes year after year, making it harder for Washington families to afford their home. Why is the bad bill should be opposed? It introduces a mandatory. Next, it's House Bill 1921, the per mile driving tax. I'm sure you've heard about this by now, but it implements a mandatory per mile tax on all vehicles by 2029, doubles taxation. Drivers still pay gas tax and per mile fees. Mileage tracking required, so raising privacy concerns, and rural and long distance commuters are hit hard. So it begins a quote unquote voluntary program in 2027, but becomes mandatory starting in 2029. 2.6 miles per mile driven, applying to electric, hybrid, and gas powered vehicles with fuel economy over 20 miles per gallon. So again, if you have a fuel efficient car, hybrid, electric, and you get over 20 miles per gallon, you're going to get charged 2.6 cents per gallon because you can afford it, apparently. Drivers will be taxed based on how much they drive on top of existing fees. So again, still going to have the tax. So it doubles taxation for many drivers per mile while still collecting gas tax from those who use fuel. So it's messed up. Hybrid and fuel efficient vehicle owners. This means paying both the per mile and tax and some gas tax. Rural area drivers will be disproportionately affected. So if you drive for work at all, you're going to get screwed in all this. Requires you to start reporting your mileage in 2026. You must submit odometer readings annually or potentially use tracking devices. Raises major privacy concerns about how mileage data is collected and stored. Increased costs for everyday commuters. Penalizes people who drive longer distances for work, school, or errands, creates a new cost burden in rural residents who have no public transit alternative. More money comes out of drivers' pockets to fund a complex new government program, which we don't even know what that government program is. So yeah, this is just a bad bill all in all. So please go and oppose this one because it's just really, really bad. I'm not a fan of it. You shouldn't be a fan of it, and it's just hurtful to our local economy here. It's just bad. The bad bill. And of course, the one thing I didn't mention is the tax on the tax. Yes, a tax on the tax. So once you get your total bill at the end of the year, you have an extra 10% tax on that. Yeah, yeah, fantastic, right? Isn't that just so amazing? Don't you just love that? Yeah, I want to talk about this one. House Bill 1136, Firearm Permit and Registration Bill, creates a mandatory firearm purchase permit system, mandates expensive and time-consuming training, universal firearm record keeping and potential registration, increases background check delays, violates Second Amendment right, ineffective crime prevention, and potential for government overreach. Ah, so again, that's just kind of the quick little view of it. We got so many bills to get to, and I don't want to take up a ton of time this evening or of your day here. So again, if you want more research on this, I'm more than happy to send you specifics. Just please ask, reach out, so I can send you more specifics on this bill specifically. Why you should oppose it? So it disproportionately affects law-abiding gun owners while doing nothing to curb criminal activity. It adds unnecessary costs and delays, making it harder for ordinary citizens to protect themselves. It could lead to a statewide firearm registry, which historically leads to gun confiscation effort. So again, trying to take our guns, Second Amendment rights. That's why we have a Second Amendment. It establishes government control over a Constitution right, which is a dangerous precedent. The state does not precedent the Constitution. The Constitution takes precedence over the state. This bill is a direct attack on our Second Amendment rights and places excessive burdens on responsible gun owners while failing to address the real causes of gun violence. So again, just think of that. That's really important just to remember. So that's our Evergreen Ledger, our legislative roundup. Let's jump into our crime and consequence section of the podcast today. Starting with House Bill 1274. House Bill 1274. This is one of the worst bills out there, I think, because it just undermines public safety as a whole. What is it? It retroactively changes sentencing laws, allows violent criminals to seek early release, and forces victims to relive their trauma while undermining the justice system. It grants resentencing opportunities for violent criminals. This includes convicted of serious or violent crimes such as armed robbery, assault, burglary, kidnapping, manslaughter. Allows convict felons whose sentences were increased due to juvenile offenses to seek resentencing. So it allows like those who committed these things as a juvenile to have their sentences reviewed as they become an adult and whatnot, which, you commit the crime, you do the time, right? You have to do what you're going to do. Just because you want to appeal it, get out early is not fair. It's not fair to the victims. It's not fair to the families. It's not fair in anyone. You did the crime, you do the time. I don't care what age you are. If you have the goal to kill, you have the goal to spend your 25 to life in prison. No ifs, ands, or buts. So this completely ignores the rights and safety of victims. So undermines the justice system by reversing sentences that were negotiated and settled, often in plea agreements and considered victims' input. So it overburdens the court system and taxpayers. It creates a dangerous precedent for future sentencing rollback, and it does not ensure public safety. Resentencing is granted under a rebuttal presumption, meaning courts must assume an inmate deserves a reduced sentence unless proven otherwise. So it makes it prove that they need to stay in prison when they committed these violent crimes. Like they already were convicted and have the sentence. Let's not unwind that. Make sure that stays going forward because that's justice, that's accountability. We don't need to create violent criminals out on the street. It allows violent criminals to seek early release, forces victims to relive trauma by reopening long-settled cases, overwhelms courts and drains taxpayer resources, creates a dangerous precedent for future sentence reductions, and puts public safety at risk by reducing sentences for serious offenders. It's a reckless rollback of criminal sentencing that prioritizes convicted felons over victims and public safety. Next is 5312, weakening online sting operations against predators, which we should be more harsh on these things, not less harsh. We need to be more harsh. Shorten sex offender registration from 10 plus years to just 5 for online predators caught in sting operations. Like if you're caught, then you should get the most of a sentence, right? So this weakens accountability for convicted sex offenders caught in online sting operations, shortens their registration requirement, and reduces their supervision period, increasing risk to public safety. Because online predator is still an online predator. It's still a predator. Those convicted in net nanny operations but register as sex offenders for 10 to 15 years or more, depending on the severity of the charge. Again, This bill cuts the requirements to just 5 years for individual with no prior sex offense history. So who cares? If you were caught online, if you were caught in person, it does not matter. A predator is a predator, and they deserve to be on that list for life, not just 10 to 15 years, for life. No ifs, ands, or buts. This shortens the community supervision for convicted offenders. It weakens protections for children by reducing consequences for predatory behavior. If you're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna, 5 years, do it again. No big deal. Pet nanny operations catch offenders who knowingly seek out minors for illegal sexual activity. Although the child in these things is fictitious, the offender fully believes they are targeting a real minor. So again, why would you want to make that less? They think that they're going to be targeting a minor. That's what they're into. That's what they're trying to do. Pedophiles, they're predators. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Why would we not want harsher? We should have harsher penalties for these crimes, not less harsh. This is ridiculous. Harsher penalties. I'm sorry. Pedophiles deserve harsher penalties for their crimes. Sex offenders deserve harsher penalties for their crimes. That's just no ifs, ands, or buts. This shortens the time convicted sex offenders must register, reducing public awareness, cuts supervision periods, allowing offenders to move freely sooner, undermines law enforcement efforts to catch online predators, puts children at greater risk by reducing consequences for attempted exploitation, prioritizes leniency for convicted offenders over justice for victims. Again, if they're children, they absolutely should be the priority in this, not the offender. That's the offender, honestly. That's my take. There's no sympathy for people who commit sex crimes against children. None whatsoever. Speaking of criminals, have you ever thought it would be such a great idea? Let's allow them to volunteer in school. What? No, I don't want a criminal anywhere near my school. Yes, there's formal criminals that are parents that have turned their lives around. Yes, absolutely. I believe anyone can turn their life around, give it to God, and you can turn your life around 100%. But this weakens school safety by making it easier for individual with criminal records to gain unsupervised access to children and vulnerable individuals. Again, it could allow them just to walk in right through the front door to volunteer for your school, and they have a criminal record. Why? Why? And then this makes it harder for the school to deny these, potentially making it harder to reject high risk individuals. Like, come on. They can appeal their denials. No, you shouldn't be allowed anywhere near children and individuals with developmental disabilities. It reduces school control over volunteer background checks, ignores the safety risk of certain criminal convictions. Again, the bill does not specify automatic disqualification for victims involving child abuse, violent crimes, or sex offenses. Absolutely not. If any of those are anywhere near children, they need to be far away from children. They should still be locked up. They should still be serving the time for whatever crime they did, right? And they shouldn't be in children having all this access to commit more crimes. This creates a loophole for potentially dangerous individuals to argue for access to vulnerable children. No, if their children are vulnerable, it's a no. This is asinine. This is crazy. Why would this be okay? Whose idea was it? I'm looking this up right now because I want to see who is sponsoring this bill. 1189. Oh, guess who? You'll never guess who's on this bill. Oh, so Warren Peterson. So we got Representative Tara Simmons. We got Representative Ortiz Sell. Oh yeah, she's kooky. She was I think she was the one that said, I'm tired of hearing of parental access. Masry, looks like May. Nicole Macri is one. Strom Peterson, looks like a pedo. Lauren Davis, Democrat. Tim Orangeby, Democrat. Also kind of looks like a predator. I'm just also being very judgy. Monica Horado Stonier, so Democrat. And Natasha Hill, Democrat. Why? Why do you guys think this is such a good idea? Like, what in your right mind up there is like, oh yeah, let's make it easier for criminals to have access to children, especially the ones who have crimes against children. Please go ledge.wa.gov, type in 1189, go and contact each and every one of these citizens and ask them, what the heck are you thinking? What is wrong with you? It's crazy. This is the one I cannot wrap my head around. This is so obvious why this is bad. I don't even need to go through it. This is just so bad. So bad. Let's jump into taxes, shall we? We're talking a lot about a lot of different bills, a lot of different areas. We're going to jump into House Bill 1832. So, overhauls literacy instruction, mandates third grade retention, removes teacher bonuses, and ties funding to standardized test scores, creating unintended consequences for students, teachers, and school. What? This one's it's kind of kooky. Doesn't that one sound insane a little bit? to the average person hearing this. Like, what the? Why? And it's labeled to improve student performance and success. No, let's cut through the bullshit and get right to it. So this forces third grade students to repeat a grade if they fail a test. And this that students must pass the ELA exam or alternative assessment to move on to fourth grade. Retained students must participate in an intensive reading improvement strategy, which could place additional burdens on schools and families. Creates unnecessary stress for young students and could disproportionately harm children with disabilities, English learners, and those facing economic hardship. I want to see, is this a Republican sponsored bill? There's 4 people on it. So Michael Keaton, Republican. Okay, this is bad. This is a bad look Republican. Tyler Rude, Republican. Jeremy Dufault, Republican. Not Matt Marshall. Matt, I like you, dude. It's a bad bill. This is a really bad bill. But the idea of it's really good, but it's really bad. It's still really bad. That's why I really like these guys. It's a really bad bill. It eliminates national board certification bonuses for teachers, repeals the current $6,000 bonus for board certified teacher, removes the additional 5,000 bonuses for teachers in high poverty schools. Okay, no, you do need to incentivize teachers to go to high poverty areas. You do, because those are more dangerous. Those are underserved. You do have to incentivize teachers to go there, good teachers to go there still. Schools receive extra funding if they show improvement on state math and ELA tests, meeting a 3% test score growth threshold in 2025 through 2027, receive $1,000 per student. By 2029-30, schools must have 80% of students meeting state standards to receive these funds. Punishes schools that uh, serve high needs populations. Yeah, this needs a lot of fix. It's just a bad bill. Let's see. Mandate structured literacy and prohibits certain teaching methods. Forces all schools to implement a structured literacy program, which must include systematic phonics, phonological awareness, and vocabulary instructions. Multi-sensory, multi-tittered interventions for struggling readers, especially bans the 3 queuing system, a common method used by some education systems for early reading. While structured literacy has benefits, mandating one approach limits teachers' flexibility and ignores individual student needs. You need a certain pedagogy to meet every student's needs because every student learns differently. So again, Republicans, this is a bad bill. Increases in mandatory training, promotes Singapore math without clear justification, requires the OSPE to study the Singapore math method and consider replacing Washington's current math standards with it. While Singapore math has strengths, it's unclear why Washington could switch to an entirely different system. Very interesting, but overall, really bad bill. Sorry, Republicans, even you get trashed. Even my own party does get trashed. Huge. Again, this is another one of those. It's just bad. Rent control and landlord restriction caps the increases at 7%, which guarantees a 7% increase every year. This discourages new development. This discourages more economic freedom. Small landlords may sell properties, leading to fewer rental options. This doesn't help. This doesn't help. It's going to hurt the supply. Discourages new housing constructions. Increases costs and admin burdens on landlords. Shifts more power to the AG and state bureaucracy. Hurts small and independent landlords. And the average person should oppose this bill for a few reasons. Rent control discourages new housing development. Of course, you want your rent to go down, you want more housing to be built in your area. Caps on rent increases prevent landlords from covering rising costs, leading to lower quality housing. You know, they shouldn't be price gouging. They should be making it affordable for everybody. Increases government overreach and bureaucratic control over private property. Forces small landlords out of the market, reducing rental supply and competition. Limits tenants' mobility, making it harder for new renters to find affordable housing. So again, another just bad bill. Okay, let's jump into our next segment, fentanyl and fallout. This is talking about drugs and homelessness. And there is a bill, Bill 1380, that would protect homelessness encampment. Yes, you heard that right. That's the solution here for homelessness encampments. Let's protect them. Let's protect them on public property. Can't do anything about it. Let's make it so we can't remove these things at all and make our city better or encourage people to get help to get off the streets or anything like that. Provide them resources. No. Let's allow it to happen. So this limits the government's ability to regulate the homelessness encampments on public property, invites lawsuits against cities, and creates legal ambiguity that will tie up resources in court instead of addressing homelessness. Again, it's one of those things that says homelessness on it to address it, but it doesn't actually address the homelessness at all. So it's one of those, oh, wait, this doesn't actually do anything kind of thing. Cities and counties would be required to prove that laws regulating public camping are objectively reasonable in terms of time, place, and manner. It's a vague standard and it prevents cities from enforcing existing rules on where and when camping is allowed. Allows individuals to sue cities over unreasonable enforcement of camping bans. Cities could face endless lawsuits challenging their ability to regulate homelessness and camping. And a similar law in Oregon led to lawsuits that resulted in hundreds of thousands of dollars in settlement. And it fails to address the root cause of homelessness. Instead of investing in shelter, addiction treatment, mental health services, this bill focuses on legal protection for encampment. I just don't get it. It's so obvious what the root causes are. Let's just attack those. Take all this energy and put it into those. Make bills for shelters, addiction treatment, mental health services. But no, we're gonna. God, I can't. Who is this? Who is this by? Mia Gregerson, Democrat. Sean Peterson, Democrat. Lisa Parsley, Democrat. Tara Simmons, Democrat. Emily Alvarado, Democrat. Gary Pollitt, Democrat. Nicole Macri, Democrat. Natasha Hill, Democrat. Tim Ormsby, Democrat. Oh my God, this is such a bad bill. Why? Why? Like, I'm just stressed talking about it with you guys. Because instead of investing in these things, we're just going to allow it. It's not solved by allowing people to camp in public parks, sidewalks, or near schools. It requires structured support services, an actual plan. Let some common sense people in there to create a plan to fix homelessness, because there's average people out there who can do it. I would be more than willing to do something about this if it actually means, getting people off the street. Heck, even ChatGPT could probably solve it. Just let ChatGPT solve it, and then you just fill in the blanks. I know some of you guys that are working in politics aren't that smart, but just use ChatGPT. I'm sure it'll give you a decent plan outline, at least. This bill forces communities to tolerate tent cities in public spaces. It removes the ability of local government to respond effectively to homelessness by setting legal traps for cities trying to enforce reasonable policy. It's just so frustrating. I'm so frustrated. I wish it made sense. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Literally, shelters, addiction treatment, mental health services. Those are literally the three things you need. If you can get those three things, some shelters set up, maybe some old rundown hotels, maybe some hotels that are failing, anything like that, maybe a hotel that just went under, anything like that, grab those, shelter, boom. Addiction treatment, bring that in, make that part of the hotel. Mental health services, bring those in to the shelter. Bada bing, bada boom. You can clean up a bunch of people's lives really quick. Bring them God, bring the church in as well, bring Christianity in, bring Jesus into these people's lives, and bada bing, bada boom, watch the magic happen in people's lives to turn their lives around. They will all make a U-turn for Christ, a U-turn for themselves, and a U-turn for their lives. Yeah. Gosh. Sanitation would also be at risk. Your cities would be dirtier. Yeah, it's just so bad. Oh my gosh. And if you already hadn't sighed enough, how about I introduce you to House Bill 1696? Before I do, let me just make sure we covered everything. We covered this one. We covered House Bill 1296. We covered the property taxes. We covered estate. We covered that. We covered per mile tax, one of the crazier ones. We covered this awful Republican bill, which I wish I never saw. But again, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it on both sides of the aisle. Did we talk about 1834? I don't think we talked about 1834. Which, amazing. So it violates your First Amendment rights and so it imposes broad and unconstitutional regulations on online services, increases government overreach, and sends dangerous precedents for online speech and privacy. Which, again, I don't know about you, but I like my free speech. I like being able to speak out openly against my legislatures and what I feel is going on, what I feel is wrong, and be able to, host a podcast without getting cop knocked out my door. And lo and behold, this is sponsored by Lisa Callan, Democrat, Dave Pohl, Democrat, and the list goes on and on. Barry, Levitt, Parsley, Bernard, Taylor, Doglio, Gregerson, Rammel, Ty, Shavers, Macri, Zahn, Eslick, Fossey, Burnban, Scott, Pollitt, Nant, and Cortez. And it's protecting children online. It's not protecting them. There's similar laws in California that have been blocked by federal courts for violating free speech rights. Restricts how social media platforms can display content, which courts have ruled is protected speech. The government cannot dictate how online services operate or what content users see, which again, this is where it kind of brings in the children here by not, monitoring it and keeping things away from children, which is, a bad part in it. It mandates age verification threatening online privacy, requires all websites likely to be accessed by minors to estimate users' ages, forces online platforms to collect and store more personal data, creates a surveillance system of all users. Again, minors, I'm sorry if you're a minor listening to this, which, props to you if you're a minor listening to this, but you don't have the same rights as an adult. And we need to stop allowing our kids to think that they have all these same rights as an adult because they don't until they're actually adult. Um, This also prohibits addictive feeds for minors, which is a vague term that could apply to nearly any website. Limits when businesses can send home notification to minors. The law puts the government in charge of deciding what online content is appropriate for minors, instead of parents, which again, parents decide that what's best for their kids, not the government. Applies sweeping new regulations to social media, search engines, and websites. Subjects businesses to lawsuit under Washington's Consumer Protection Act. The bill assumes that banning addictive feeds and limiting notifications will prevent social media addiction. I mean, they're going to find ways around. Parental controls and digital literacy education are a more effective solution than government mandate, 100%. And heavy-handed regulations will make platforms less functional for everyone without solving any problem. Again, I believe this also allows libraries and public spaces to, again, it's going to be deemed what they feel is addictive and what they feel shouldn't be seen by them, which could ultimately lead to, porn being accessed on the library and a homeless man jerking it. I'm sorry, that's just the reality of while your kids are trying to go to the library and work on a school project with their friends. I don't know. That's what they're going to see. And again, that stuff should be inaccessible on our public libraries and our public settings where children are. Yeah. It expands protected classes in public schools, adding new protected classes: ethnicity, homelessness, immigration or citizenship status, neurodivergent, separates gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation into three distinct protected classes. But I'm pretty sure there's only two genders, so there's not really much there. Potential for conflict in interpretations on what constitutes discrimination based on neurodivergence or ethnicity may cause schools to lose federal funding if they don't comply. We don't need Again, we're one of the least dependent states. If you listen to the Evergreen Local, I talked about this, but we're one of the least dependent states in on federal funding in the U.S. But again, we still need that federal funding because we have a spending problem, but we also have a budget deficit. So if we can figure that out and get that under control, then maybe we can talk about things to add in. This separates gender identity from sex and legal language, which could force schools to allow biological males and girls restroom, locker rooms, and sports team, which is an absolute hard stop. If that ever happens in my school where my kids go, we're out of there. I don't care. It's an absolutely, we're done with this school, and this is never going to happen ever again. And I will fight that tooth and nail. I will die on that hill. Parental rights groups have expressed these concerns as well. Puts more burdens on school without addressing academic needs. There's already so much struggle to comply with existing regulation, but this adds a new layer of complexity without additional funding or training or anything like that. Schools should focus on academic achievement rather than imposing legally complex identity politics. Again, focus on math, reading, writing, literacy. 70% or more of our eighth graders are failing math and science or math and reading. Let's work on that a little bit, right? Right? We didn't even talk about House Bill 1607, which is forces businesses to fund and implement a mandatory beverage container deposit system, raising costs for consumers and creating inefficiencies in Washington's recycling system. So it would the 10-cent deposit acts as a regressive tax. So again, it just adds more money out of pocket. Must pay an extra 10 cents per beverage container at the time of purchase. So if you buy a 12-pack, it's an extra $1.20. So you're just paying more. And they could fine a business up to $10,000 per day for non-compliance with it. Like they must track and remit deposit charges separately. Like this creates so much more work. And this forces beverage brands to form a pro. Of course, a three-letter agency, another NGO, can manage this program. We already have some of the highest recycling rates in the country without a deposit system. This isn't needed. We don't need this. This 10% deposit acts as a regressive tax. Some families will end up paying the deposit without ever getting it back, increasing the cost of essential goods like Gatorade, water bottle, 32 pack of water bottles. That's an extra $3.20. That's just more money. Like it's crazy. Like I just want to buy a case of water, but I'm not going to do that if I have to, pay an extra, so many dollars for it, because that's ridiculous. It's just bottled water. It's just bottled water. Why do I have to pay so much for it? So this creates a new hidden tax on beverages, makes recycling more complicated and inefficient, forces businesses to administer a costly and bureaucratic deposit system, gives excessive power to the government to fine and shut down businesses, so creates logistical challenges for rural and low-income residents who may not be able to redeem deposits. So again, it's just unnecessary, and it's a costly mandate. Again, so I'm a firm believer. So actually, I would support this bill. I don't know why I wouldn't support it. 1699. I would support this bill. There's nothing wrong with 1699. Oh, this is even Waters is on here, but no. Yeah, why are we? I don't understand that. No, I'm for this one. No, I'm all for this bill. I am all for this one. This one's like something I'm all for to keep biological male students from competing in female sports. This is a good bill. This is something I fully support. Gender verification, exclude biological boys from participating in girls' sports. I don't feel it violates Title IX at all, which will risk school funding. This will follow federal law. It opens the door for lawsuits, which is, it is what it is. There will always be lawsuits when it comes to these things. But again, it does prioritize politics over actual issues in school athletics. It's a legally risky and It is legally risky here, potentially seen as discriminatory. Uh, we do want to address the fairness in sport. Biological males should not compete with girls, and vice versa. This should absolutely just not happen. So, this is also federal law that needs to be followed as well. So I support 1699. I'm actually going to go and vote in support of it right now. I don't know how that one ended up on this list because I am in full support of this. See, and it's that easy. I was just able to go and support this bill in like 3 seconds. That's all it took. This is a good bill. I don't know why this one's on here. Oh, we already talked about 1512, 5222 we talked about, 1380 we talked about as well. Yeah. Okay. So very last one here. There's 1690. This is where we're going to end the podcast today on this one before we wrap it up. So 1696 expands a race-based home ownership grant. Yes, you heard that right. Expands a race-based home ownership program, increases income eligibility, and introduces full loan forgiveness, all at taxpayer expense. Your and I dollars will go for this program to fully fund a race-based program that you may not take a part of. Heck, I may not qualify, and I'm not even fully white. I may not qualify. The Covenant Home Ownership Program (CHP) gives home buying assistance based on race, targeting only those who are historically excluded due to restrictive racial covenant. So again, this is talking about de jure segregation. I don't know if you've ever read The Color of Law. Highly recommend The Color of Law. It's a fantastic book. But basically, it talks about de jure segregation. And that's what this is referring to here. It's de jure segregation through and through. But now, reverse. Eligibility is not based on financial need alone, and prioritizes applicants based on race and ancestry, rather than ensuring fair, equal access to home ownership for all. Again, it raises serious legal and constitutional concerns. Discrimination, no matter how you look at it. But again, if you oppose this bill, you're going to be called racist. So if I oppose this, I'm going to be called racist. But the bill raises the eligibility limit from 100% to 120 to 140% for the area median income, AMI, which means higher income households will qualify for taxpayer-funded home ownership aid, even though the original intent of the program was to assist economically disadvantaged individuals. Taxpayers will now subsidize home purchases for people making well above the median income. So again, we are going to give these homes away, make it harder for people to buy, and then, essentially put them in homes that they may not be able to afford long term. But it introduces full loan forgiveness after just 5 years. Originally, these down payment assistance loans had to be repaid, ensuring responsible financial management. Now, these loans will be 100% forgiven if the homeowner earns below 80% of the median income. Wow, that's just, great. Free down payment. This effectively turns these loans into grants, shifting the cost entirely onto taxpayers without ensuring financial responsibility from recipients. So again, it's just like, here you go, free money. Washington's taxpayers are funding a race-based home ownership program through a $100 recording fee on real estate transactions. Instead of assisting all first-time home buyers, the program selectively grants assistance based on race and historical residency status. Meanwhile, working-class families of all backgrounds struggling with homeownership get no assistance. The bill does nothing to reduce high housing costs or increase housing supply. Instead of tackling zoning issues, high permitting costs, or restrictive regulation, focuses on race-based subsidies rather than addressing the root causes of unaffordable housing. So again, it turns a flawed race-based home ownership program into an even bigger taxpayer burden while failing to solve the housing affordability crisis. So what's on your mind? Again, the final segment here, your voice matters. What's on your mind? Someone wrote in, asked the show here, should schools notify parents before providing medical services to students? Yes, absolutely yes. There should be nothing hidden from parents at any level of schooling, whether the kid's over 13, whether they're 5. No school should be able to make these medical decisions for these students, except for the parent. That's it. Yeah, that's kind of the end all be all. If you want to take a stand on any of these bills, it's very, very, very easy. You go to ledge.wa.gov, you type in the bill that we talked about, right? And you put in whether you oppose or you don't oppose or you accept these. And that's it. That's literally how simple it is. That's how easy it is. Um, and that's it. That's how you do it. You could oppose all these bills 10 minutes now that you have some information about them, maybe less. So go and do that. Go and do that. Go and do it. Go and do it. Go, 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 go. So again, know the facts, demand better, take action, and see you next time right here on the Evergreen Report. Remember to follow us on X and Instagram for updates between episodes at EvergreenRPT on both X and Instagram. And if you got a story, send us a message and we might feature it next time right here on the podcast. And until next time, like I said, know the facts, demand better, take action, and we'll see you next time.